So yeah, tell me, what are you finding? What's working for you, not working for you? What's alive for you? What do you like? What do you not like?
Denying a person their space is such a great concept, especially when she did that, the raise up and got right into his face. Where it was, what was that name of that space, the inner space?
Well, we have different mai. There's different mai. Yeah, there's a mai that's at a great range, probably 15, 16 feet, where people tend to be the acquiring target range. You're across the bar and the guy's eyeballing you. That's a mai. You see, why is that guy eyeballing you? He says, you're looking at me, right? And there's mai that's happening right at the edge of the bubble in space that contains you. And we think about it at the end of our hand and an extended arm. And that edge is really useful and important to pay attention to. I think that's called toi mai. Is that, Jack, you know?
Toe mai is
Toe.
Toe is the distance.
Toe mai is the distance.
Toe is part. Chica is tight.
Chica.
Yeah.
So chica is tight.
Chica mai is
very tight.
Toe mai is very large.
Toe mai is very large. And then mai just by itself is kind of the in-between. Okay. Good. I don't know much Japanese, but I'm glad I have friends who do. I look stuff up a lot and then mispronounce it a lot. Yeah. But yeah, there's this close-up range thing that's very interesting, isn't there? And then there's this very broad range thing. And there's something about changing levels on something. So if you're down here and the man's approaching you, and as he comes on to deliver energy, it changes. You get these weird effects. Or you're here, and as he approaches and starts to mess with you, it changes, you get these weird effects. Because his body has to account for everything going on, but it doesn't have to account for everything. He can start ignoring this shit pretty fast and just come and whack me. Boom. We know that. What does he have to account for? He has to account for things that are affecting my center line. And the big things that affect it, even very subtle things, happen in the hips, and happen in the shoulders, and happen in the spine. So anything that my shoulders and my hips and my spine start to operate into, his nervous system must start dealing with. Otherwise, the human animal condition, the basic back part of the brain that's doing all this calculation for him, it's learned through evolution that people that don't deal with that have a lower probability of surviving when the human being starts messing with them. And that's interesting to me because we can be in relationship. We can have a physical relationship and everything's cool. And I'm looking off in space and he changes, I don't know, pick something, your hip or your shoulder or your spine, whatever you want. That's his hip. And when his hip changed, my hip had to start dealing with me. Kazushi's occurred. Now I'm taken back off that pressure and now he does something else with a hip or a shoulder. He did it again, he just stepped on me this time. And now I start to respond to this and get cool again and he does what? He does it again. He's hitting me in sequence with elements happening. You're doing it with moving your feet. I'm going to do it to you. So we have this physical relationship. We're in contact, our centers are joined. Even if you're just joined with pinkies, our centers are joined. Doesn't take much, that's all I'm trying to say. We just have to have the sense of that I can feel his center through this point of contact. He can feel my center. Can you feel my center? And I can feel his center. That's what you're looking for at this point. It's a matter of sensitivity. It's a matter of connectivity. If we're out here and we can't feel that too much. But as soon as you get a little bit of contact, I can feel his back foot now. I can reference it without looking at it, tactily. So it's enough contact that you feel, right? Doesn't have to be huge. It can be very small. And I say, I think I'll just change my hip. And now his hip changed, didn't it? And now as he tries to make that, I change my hip differently. His hip changes. I changed my shoulder that time. Changed my shoulder again that time. My hand moved that time, but my hand moved only because my shoulder changed. I rolled it forward. Rolled it back. Rolled it forward again. Punched him up like I'm coming up to my ears. Weird feeling? Here's my hips again. Oh. Whatever's going on in the shoulders, forward, back, up and down, rolling in, rolling out, whatever's going on in the hip, opening and closing, or the whole body moving up and down, even just compressing the spine is funny. We talked about earlier, compression, relaxation. He pops up in the air a little bit. Or I'm up high and then I start compressing down. His body starts to compress down with it. Starts to mirror it. Can't not. Well, it can't, but then again, they get, good relation. Cool? So I want you to experiment with some of this. It's very interesting. He can have you two hands on your grip. Bad thing. And if I am interested in trying to affect him, like I want to cause him to rise up and get into body runs, for instance. And if I'm getting under this and trying to lift, I'm telling you, he's just crushing me down. Man, that's no good. If I relax my arms, and he still has the same good structure, good, here, yeah, good structure, and I just tuck my hips. Isn't that weird? Mm-hmm. When my hips changed, his hips had to change. He could not do it. There he goes, up in the air, junior first man, that way around. Right? If you're here, and again, he's overwhelming power. And I want to affect him, I want to twist him this time. But I'm not going to try, if I twist from down here in the radius and ulna, we tend to just say, I want twisty things to happen. And I want to do it like this, but we do it from this part of the arm, just the forearm down. We have very limited success. Maybe just as he's grabbing, we might get something to work. But I'm going to rotate it at my shoulder. That's the shoulder turn. Leaving the arm alone. Shoulder turn. Get up here now, earth again. Right? So rolling the point of the shoulder. And you can do this on a point on the wall. Get the point on the wall and you just turn your shoulder all the way. Years and years ago, I was in a clinic with a great technical man. He said, the arm is just a universal joint at the shoulder. You just roll it around in a big ball, and that's correct. But it's also something that goes up and down, forward and back, out and in. It has these other properties to it that I've kind of ignored for a long time. And those properties can be very, very useful because if I want to just lift this up and twist over the top of it, and he's bad, it ain't happening. If I put a little pressure on him and cock the shoulder, whole different effect. Shoulder, shoulder. It's all happening here. This becomes kind of immaterial. And it has a lot of effect in it. His body has to get responsive to it. That's my shoulder curling up on my right shoulder. This is still passive right now. The response. Here's my other shoulder curling. The elbow went along with it because he pushed it. And I'll put this shoulder up here for him. Damn, that's a weak structure. Yes, it is. But it's usually powerful compared to what his body's doing. So you need to explore what these shoulders can do for you. Because they're very, very interesting. We already understand the hips by and large. We know that if you have contact and my hip coils in entirely, coils out entirely, that you have a huge facility with that. But finding that same facility up here is very, very interesting because it doubles your play. For a long time, I thought everything was just all right here. And so that's all I ever did. That's good. It ain't bad. But man, this is also good. I coil it and I uncoil it. My hip didn't engage at all. Draw my elbow back. My elbow doesn't go back, my shoulder pulls back. So you see this in judo. The man's going, okay, now we're going to do it. And we're going to step out here and lift his elbow. Watch it, lift the elbow, lift your elbow. Ignore the elbow. Engage the shoulder. The shoulder going up behind it. Terrible feeling? If he can stop this elbow, I promise. That's right. The shoulder kicks his butt. Weird? Yeah, it is weird. I experimented with Greg 2 nights ago. Uh-huh. Look, my shoulder can go even when my elbow can't. And he can hold it strong, 2 hands. He can hold it. Yeah. Don't let him lift that damn thing. Create a little torsion on his body. I want to cause him to come to me a little bit. And then I'm just punch the shoulder up. So it's the same dynamic as what we have in the hips. It has the capacity to create coiling actions of springs, but also elongation and dropping too. So that if he has it at one plane, and then it drops down and it rises up, you get this thing happening too. Cool? So experiment with it a little bit, see what you find. Great. I talked too long again.